speaking of hookers, as I mentioned in my last video, that we had one working an outdoor gig party that I played at South by Southwest. Here's another insane story. So I lived in Japan for a couple of years. So when I was back in New York before I moved to Nashville, I was approached by a very, very big media conglomerate in Japan because they wanted to do a remake of Love Story, the movie Love Story. And they wanted it to be very authentic. They wanted all the same locations. They even wanted the exact same car that was driven in the movie, which we got and broke down every 5 minutes. But the best part was the best part. I don't know if this is the best part, but it was the most insane part. Everything went great. The whole shoot was beautiful. The Japanese crew was amazing. The actors were fantastic. It was just a joy to work on. I hardly had to do anything, made some good money, and it was a beautiful, beautiful rendition of this film, and it won an award in Japan when it showed on television. However, on the last day of the shoot, I get approached by one of the production assistants, and he came up to me as the producer of the film, and he said, hey, listen, the lead actor wants, and he's like hemming and hawing, and I'm like, what? What does he want? What does he need? We'll get him whatever he needs. Well, he wants a girl. And I'm like, a girl? And he's like, yeah, he wants you to procure something for him. And I'm like, what? I mean, I was completely flabbergasted. And he's like, yeah, but he wants to see her first. He wants to see a picture of her. And I'm like, oh my God, like what? So I go to my co-producer who had tons of experience. He grew up in the film and television industry. And I said, dude, what do I do? And he's like, I want no part of this. He's like, I'm out. I'm like, you're the co-producer. He's like, no, this is your thing. And I'm like, my thing? Anyway, so I called up a friend of mine who, worked out at the same gym. And I said, and he knows things. And I said to him, hey man, like, what do I do? And he's like, where are you? And I gave him the location. He's like, all right, stay there. And then like 15 minutes later, a messenger comes with a bag. And in that bag is a portfolio of girls. And I'm like, what the what? And so sure enough, he's like, yeah. He's like, don't worry. He's like, show him that. Tell him to pick out a girl. And I'm like, oh my God, now I'm a pimp? I'm like, I just, but yeah, okay. So stupidly, I give him the book and let him pick out a girl. And I said, okay, look, I told the interpreter, even though I spoke Japanese, I said, look, make this clear that I'm out, right? Like, this is his thing. He can deal with it from here on in. This is as far as okay, everything okay. Well, it got even more insane because apparently the girl went to their room that night. They sent a limo with champagne and flowers and the whole bit. They had already agreed on an exorbitant price. She went to the room, had cocktails with them, and then left. Or at least this is what I was told the next day. And I'm like, what? And no, it gets worse. He wanted his money back, and I was supposed to get his money back. And I'm like, oh my God, this is completely like, I don't know what, So, my co-producer's laughing at me. He's like, see, I told you I wanted no part of this. And I'm like, I wanted no part of this. So I explained to him, so anyway, I made some calls and said, hey, listen, what went down? And they're like, well, no, the girl says this and dude says this. And it was just a nightmare, and so it went back and forth for a few days. Then he flew back to Japan, and I thought I was never going to hear the end of it until A few months later, my friend who sent the portfolio up calls me up and he's like, hey man, he goes, you know your buddy in Japan there, he flew her over and has been seeing her and brought her over. I'm like, what? What? I mean, show business, baby. It don't get better than this. Add pimp to my resume. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. I wrote a song about it that I recorded with my band in Norway called Mad King Edmund. It's called Big in Japan, so check it out. It's on Spotify. I'll link it on YouTube, but yeah, if you're on Spotify, Big in Japan by Mad King Edmund tells the whole story.